Hey guys, it's Heather at Homeschool Culture. In today's video, we're going to talk about how do you know if your child is learning. So if that is something that you're interested in, then stick around. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and start with how you know. You know if your child is learning if you talk to them, if you communicate with them. Not the worksheet, not the lap book, not the notebooking, not the project, not even the written paper. I would say you know if you talk to them. What about the worksheet, the lap book, notebooking, projects, papers, and whatever else there is? What about all of that? How does that all fit in? And so today I want to jump on here and just kind of give you my opinion. And I always want to come to you based on what over the 13 plus years as a educator in a classroom, and then the 7 years here. So what is that going on? About 2 decades worth of educating. These are just things that I have come across that I believe are true for most. Now the difference is that what we do here at our homeschool is going to look different than your homeschool because of just different circumstances. You have more kids than I do. You work from home. There's all these different other circumstances that will attribute to how that works for you. But I wanted to make this video just because I don't want anybody to think that you can't do worksheets, you can't do lap books, you can't do, notebooking or projects or anything like that. I allude to in some of my videos that I think it's busy work, worksheets are, and it is for my kids, it is. And it doesn't, and I do believe, and this again is my opinion, that worksheets don't necessarily give an accurate depiction of if your child learned something. And again, that is just purely my opinion and observation throughout the years of doing this. But let me kind of backtrack. And the reason why I'm doing this video is because one of y'all reached out and asked about lap books and if I thought lap books was busy work. I think it can be. I think all of them can be busy work, and then all of them can be beneficial. And there might be even other reasons why they're beneficial. And so I'm going to get into all of that. Okay, starting with communication. You have to talk to your kiddos to know what they're learning. And to do this is obviously the best way to do it, in my opinion, is through, orally, especially for those younger kids who can't necessarily get what their thoughts are here onto paper to explain what they have learned. I'm a very eclectic homeschooler, but I do follow Charlotte Mason's narration, especially for my 10-year-old. I do a lot of different various things for my daughter because she is about to go into college in a few years. And so I just want her to see a variety of learning assessments or knowledge assessments because when she goes into college, she will have different things that they expect from her. And so I don't want her going into it going, I never did any of this. And so that is why I kind of provide her a bunch of different things now that I wouldn't necessarily do when she was younger. And I wouldn't necessarily do if I knew she probably wasn't going into college after high school. And so again, that's communicating with your kiddos to kind of get an idea of what they want to do in life and what their plans are for after high school. Okay, so let's backtrack to, let's just start with worksheets. I'm going to say this probably a lot on different things. I have a love-hate relationship with worksheets because, as you and I know, if you went to public school like I did, maybe you didn't do this, but I did, you would have a history teacher and they would say, read pages, this to this, and here's the sheet and answer the questions. And it wasn't me actually reading and attaining knowledge and gaining that knowledge. It was literally skimming, right? I skimmed for the answers, which I think is a very important skill to have. Think how many times we have to skim, information, documents, etc. in life. And so I think skimming is important to acquire for kids to learn how to do. But it's funny too, because like whenever kids learn, whenever kids do, standardized tests in the public education world, a lot of times teachers teach them those types of skills. They teach them how to skim and, they teach the test, which is really kind of sad, right? That's sad. They're not learning how to comprehend what they read. They're learning how to skim for quick answers. And that is not what I want for my kids. So we don't do a whole lot of worksheets. My daughter, for instance, she does for her civics class, like a government class, through master's books. She does have a fill-in-the-blank type worksheet, and I believe her tests are fill-in-the-blank as well. But because of that, her and I have oral communication back and forth of what she learned. They do a really good, I like Masterbooks Civics so far. They do a really good job at their lecture. And when she goes to college, that's what it's going to be like. That is what I was a business major with, like kind of like a minor in secondary education for my undergrad. And it was that. It was mostly, you read, and fill out a worksheet. And then the worksheets kind of are what the tests look like. And so luckily in college, most of the time you'll have great lectures to go along with it. So that's a plus. But if you're just giving a kid a workbook and he's supposed to read some passages and do a worksheet that goes along, and you expect that's, to me, in my opinion, that's not learning. Because majority of the time, especially if they've never even learned what narration is, a majority of the time, it is literally skimming for the answer. Again, that is why I really value narration, because it especially in the early years for oral, it can expand a great discussion. And then if your kiddo does written, same thing. I mean, you can read it and then go back and discuss it with them if they're doing the written narration once they hit, that certain age. So what about Lapbooks and notebooking? I think they too can kind of be like workbooks or worksheets, but not always. I feel like if a Lapbook took, like, let's say you're going over ancient Egypt. We're going over that right now. So let's say you're going over ancient Egypt and you read all of these different books, maybe that the Lapbook suggested, or the curriculum suggested, and then you bring it all together through a Lapbook, and so they can kind of see it all comes together. I think that's great. And I think the same applies for notebooking. I have seen it the opposite of that, where almost the Lapbook is the teaching, and I think that is not going to be as beneficial. And the notebooking, it's like they just kind of take a worksheet, cut it out, and put it into a notebook. Again, I feel like that is more, and guys, I'm just saying, this is just my opinion, and you could say I totally disagree with you, and please put that down in the comments. Say, hey, I've done this and it's worked for us, because I am one person. And so the more of y'all that comment, either whether agree or disagree, but give your what has worked for your children, that's just going to help others along the way. And that's kind of like this process with teaching. It's not I do it once and it's perfect and this is the way I do it forever. I mean, it truly is something that's evolved for me, and it has grown into what it is now. And that is why I share with y'all, because I want y'all to maybe bypass some of those years of, I don't think my kid's really learning anything. And not just that, but I mean, having that dialogue with your children and those discussions, I think really is a great aspect of homeschool, which is one of the things I enjoy and one of the reasons I enjoy it. So back to Lapbooks and notebooking. Yes, I think it very much can be just busy work, or it can be very much can like bring lessons together and kind of show like a big picture. My daughter and I did some Lapbooks back when she was younger, like on like over books, like Charlotte's Web, that type of thing. And I think that could probably work. Like you could probably at the end of the Charlotte's Web reading, maybe do a Lapbook, and it kind of brings together all of the different, the themes and plot and all that. That's why it's so imperative that hopefully you can look at curriculum and look at Lapbooks and things like that before you purchase them, or watch videos of people that show it, because there's nothing worse than spending money on homeschool stuff that you're like, and I'm not using that. Okay, so what about those that y'all are like, Heather, I've already bought all of my curriculum and I really don't have the money to go and buy new curriculum? Then I would say absolutely keep using it. If it is a very much read and do a worksheet, you can, and maybe you're not with everything starting out, but maybe like one or two subjects, go into more of the narration instead of doing that worksheet for the day, have them narrate and just kind of, filter it in that way. And then over time, build it where majority of your stuff is narration if you choose to do it that way. I definitely don't want a child to have to do both, right? I don't feel like they should have to do narration and a worksheet. Starting out, like you'll have kids that will probably be very drawn to narration. They want to tell you. And then you'll have kids that you have to pull it out of. If you want more information on narration, let me know, and I will send you over to some good podcast and other YouTube videos, because I am definitely not an expert, I would say, in narration, but there are some out there that I think that I learned a lot from that I'd be happy to share with you as well if you're curious. One thing about narration, and just in case, because I just want you to throw this out there, always start with oral, even if your child is older. So even if you have a 14-year-old who is about to start narration, you want to try that out. Always start with oral and then gradually grow into written. And then also you don't have to do written for every subject, FYI. And it's usually about the mark off is about 10 years old. You know your child, so do it when you think's appropriate. I wouldn't say before 10 probably, unless they're just that really, really, really exceptional child. And then if you have a kid, like I have a kiddo who's dyslexic, then it's always going to be oral narration. And I will either write it out as he goes, and then we'll kind of reread it and say, okay, is this what you meant? You know, things like that. Or I forgot about this. Or you can draw it out. So him and I have a science notebook that we work with, where we go in after at the last week of each science topic that we're going over. We usually go over them for about, I would say 3 to 5 weeks, depending on what it is. Then we'll go in and we will choose something that we'll discuss, like all the different stuff we learned. And then we'll choose one of those things and we will somehow depict it in a picture or a diagram. And if we need to bring out a book or something, we'll do that. And it just kind of gives it, that's how I kind of close out that topic study. And we move on to the next. And I really think, well, first off, he can, that's something he can keep from years to come. But then it also just, anytime you're going over prior things that you've already learned, that's going to help. So like, let's say you're like, Heather, I don't have time for all of that. I just want to keep doing it. But yeah, I might want to talk to my kids about it. Then ask questions, and especially if you're doing the schoolwork with them. So like if you have younger kids and y'all are working on, astronomy, and y'all are talking about phases of the moon or something. Every day you should be questioning your child over things that they learned the previous day. Whenever I was a public school teacher, some of y'all might be young enough that y'all did this as a student, but we would do something called bell ringers or Bellwork. And it was like that first 5 minutes of class, the teachers put it like a question up on the board. You worked on that while the teacher got like roll done or whatever. And it was mandatory. And when they first started doing it, teachers were like, oh my gosh, one more thing we have to do now. But it really is great. It is a great transition just into the new day. So I would ask my students a question, which would evolve into multiple questions. And I honestly think that my students did really well in my class because of just every day they were getting questioned again from previous days or even sometimes previous weeks, depending on what it is. I think that helps out a lot too. It's just bringing that back to memory. And then sometimes they might even be able to apply it for this next lesson and correlate it and things like that. And so all of those little nuggets of information are going to help them in the big picture. Okay, so how do you know? You communicate with your kiddo. Again, I'm going to be an advocate for Charlotte Mason style narration. I think it is wonderful. It is, think about this. If I go and I tell a child to read a passage and then I give them multiple choice answers or even fill in the blank, I'm questioning them. And once you start learning about narration, it's really them telling you what they know, and it's not me questioning. So I don't go into it asking questions. I go into it asking, what did you learn? There is different types of narration questioning you can do. But a lot of times you're wanting the child to come up with what information they got from that book or that video they watch or whatever it is. So again, if you're interested, let me know and I will put something down below for y'all on that. But I am not going to judge the mom who, has little ones and they love doing lap books and she's able to get them to work on a lap book while she's over here with a different child, working on something else, or the mom who has, multiples, and that is just, as of right now, that's the way, doing worksheets and grading those are the way that is easiest for them. I will say this, worksheets take more time to grade than normally oral narrations, obviously, and then written as well. So I will say that it is less time consuming for the mom, and of course, less time consuming for the child, which gives them more time to do, child-led activities and things like that. And so again, I get some mamas are like, I really need it because it makes them sit and be quiet while I work on this, work with this child. Then I say, that if it works for you, then do it. Or you can always come up with maybe other things for them to do. I didn't really touch on projects, but I think projects are great as well. And sometimes it can reaffirm whatever they already learned that day or the previous day. If it's a bigger project, of course, it can bring things together. I know it's more planning on the mom's part. I get that. But sometimes that extra little bit of planning is really more beneficial for your child. and I think also too, I think as moms, we have to remember we don't have to do only this or only this. Like, it can be a variety of things, and then you find out what works best for you and your child, or you and your children, and then be able to, maybe gradually move into this or gradually move into that. Or maybe it's always very, very eclectic and you do all types of things all the time, which I think is okay too. I just wanted to clarify, because I didn't want to come across as there's never a place for worksheets. I just have a love-hate relationship with them, because I just know how they can be used. That doesn't mean it's being used like that in your homeschool. So I'm just gonna leave it there. One thing to think about too, whenever you're looking at questioning. So if you're like, well, I don't really know if these worksheets are benefiting my kid, well, read through them. If it's very much like, there's something called Bloom's taxonomy, which are various different types of questions, okay? So you have, like, down here at the very basic, rote memory, knowledge. And when I say knowledge, it's more like I remember, right? So I remember 2 + 2 is 4. And then you have way up here something called create. So I think there's remembering, understanding. I'm going to miss on some of these. Remembering, understanding, explaining, synthesizing, creating. I'm missing something. Did I say explaining already? There's like 5 or 6 of them. And there are different levels of questions. And so if a child can explain something back to you versus just putting, filling in a blank or, circling a multiple choice on a worksheet, then at that point that they understand, their knowledge of that subject matter is probably at a higher level. And so if you're only providing them with worksheets that are very basic, what's this, what, just basic fact type information like dates and places and maybe little bitty tiny facts about something, then it's not going to necessarily promote that higher level thinking. And so that is what Bloom's taxonomy does. There is a place for that. I will say this, like for us on dates, we're not real big on dates. We have a history timeline, because I think the history timeline kind of shows you, it correlates, okay, all of these things are happening around the same time. So that kind of brings it together. But I don't ever say, okay, well, when was this date or when was that date? Because we can quickly go back and reference that, right? But to be able to go back and understand why a war was happening, or being able to go back and really explain a specific science topic, the way, coral reproduces, things like that, it's going to be a lot different than just giving me a quick fact of there's hard coral and soft coral, So that's something else to think about. If you want a video on Bloom's taxonomy, I would love to do that as well, and just kind of give some more examples, only because it really helped me as a public educator and as a home educator to try to get that level of learning at a higher level, because I'm providing time for them to hit that higher level of thinking instead of just giving them a worksheet, if that makes sense. So I will definitely do that if you want. If there's any questions or if you have any comments, again, if you agree or disagree, I would love for you to put those down below. I am not the person who is going to tell you that this is the way it is. I don't believe that. I think everything is very circumstantial, and I just know over the last 20 years of being an educator, it is something that I have noticed. And just like a lot of y'all, I was a student through public education. And then even when I was getting my college degree, even then, it still was, it was a lot less, what's the word I'm looking for? Higher learning than you think. Maybe a little bit with my master's, but definitely not with my undergrad. So, and then there's going to be some of y'all that go, I don't really care what they learn in history. I know I have to do it to please the state, and so we do it and we move on. That's okay too. There's going to be a time I understand, trust me, there's going to be a time when that might apply to you. I really, again, go back to Charlotte Mason spreading the feast. And it is, even if I don't find something valuable or important, my child might find it valuable or important, or maybe later on in life find it valuable, important. That's why I want to provide that feast of information. And then as they get older and as they learn more, as they get older and they learn how great it is to learn, right, to attain knowledge, they can they can decide if they want to further explore whatever topic area. That's another reason why I like spreading the feast, but I really do think you have to get past just filling out a worksheet to really be able to spread that feast. And so again, my opinion, but okay, on that note, I'm gonna let you go. I hope you have a super blessed day and a blessed week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.